so much. This is awesome. I call everybody on here nerds because you're all my friends, and that means you're nerds, first of all. And second, this is my high school drama teacher, Patty Michaels, would call us all geek face, and that's how we knew that we were in. Megan remembers. So this is, I'd like to dedicate tonight to Patty Michaels. She's just retired, and she helped me do all of this stuff that you're going to see. So she's amazing. I'm here to just talk about my journey. I've been, as you said, I've been in pizzeria basement theaters, and I've been on the stage with Cirque du Soleil. I had my shirt taken off in front of 1,000 people every night, and the audience would scream, and I've learned a lot through that time. There's every stage of theater has really interesting challenges. And so I'm going to get into that. But first I'm going to tease you with just a few things. First is an actor who's dressed as a lawyer, a drunken lawyer, passing through the kitchen of a pizzeria on his way to a garbage-strewn alley. That's scene one. And I'm also going to ask, what happens when during the darkness-shrouded, climactic scene, the murder moment at the end of Act 1, when the lights don't actually go off? What do you do? Crap. And what do you do when one of the trampoline artists lies down after making his first jump and bounces back up and then lies down on top of the stage 30 feet in the air? What do you do? How do you deal with that? These are the kinds of challenges that people have to face. So I got involved in theater in high school. And this is closest to then. That was in college. This is, I don't know what that is. That guy was very serious. But I found my people. I really found my people. I got to feel so in community. I got to feel so safe. And I got in because a friend of mine, Jason Levesque, told me that the girls changed clothes backstage. And it was totally true. And so thank you, Jason. I stayed because I really found a group of people who made me feel safe. For the first time I'd ever got to talk to people in a way that really felt good. I could be myself. I stuck with it because the people were so incredible and the sense of community was so amazing. Everybody pitched in. Everybody stayed late. Everybody was committed to getting this big awkward thing up in front of audiences. And every now and then, there would be cool girls there, right? And at one point, actually, a friend of mine looked over at the closing night party we were having and said, "Mick is absolutely surrounded by women. Get a camera." And I was like, this is working. I don't know what's happening. So when I got to the working world, I actually couldn't understand why everybody wasn't as friendly. It was actually really a big change for me. Why they weren't as eager to support each other. And over the years, I've wondered about the other aspects of what the world could learn from theater. And this talk is really about what I've learned. So what is life? Life is problem solving. Solving problems in your area of interest. And business is solving valuable problems for people. And theater is solving problems so that you can entertain people. And theater people really get paid pennies. We get paid nothing. Working for Cirque was the first time I ever got paid well to be in theater. But we solve really interesting problems. And theater is always based on the shared understanding that you're not getting well paid to be here, but we're all really committed to it. And there's something really cool is that when people keep showing up, even when they're not being financially really rewarded, it's because they're really getting something special out of it. And so those communal aspects of theater, which for me were so life-changing, they were so important. That collaboration, that sense of togetherness, that shared commitment, that dedication to the craft, the rewards of actually seeing it through, that was all so rewarding that people would commit themselves to shows and we would pull this off. And so my question is what can we learn from them? How can we bring some of that magic to our own work? Okay, so I'm going to talk through a number of different scales of theaters, from the pizzeria basement up to the sort of local stalwart, all the way up to the international level. I'm going to start with the smallest one. And the theater is called Impact Theater, and it's a theater in North Berkeley. And it's in the basement of a pizzeria called Laval's. And it exemplifies what I'm going to call the scrappy startup. Impact Theater was a place that I heard about when I first arrived at the Bay Area. A friend who I was just met in the theater world said, dude, you got to work at Impact Theater. You do stuff on stage that I've never done before. I juggled chainsaws in a show, and I did a car chase in another show. And I was like, what are you talking about? Okay, like I'm in. And I worked there for one show, and it was called Money and Run Episode 4. And this is our poster. That's my friend Alex. She was Money, and he is Run. I don't remember his name, but he was great. And as you can tell, very unattractive people, so hard to hang out with. Money and Run was the 4th episodic theater, like full production with an intermission and everything, that Impact had produced. They had 3 other episodes as well, and this was the 4th one. It was a ridiculous sort of crime caper type of show, and there was a big climactic fight scene at the end. But the whole thing happened in this basement of a pizzeria, this little stage that's in the basement of the pizzeria. And so, brief digression into the way stages are set up. In most stages, you're back here, and people can walk off that side, or people can walk off that side. But in this stage, because of the way it was set up, you would come down into the basement, and there was audience on 2 of the main sides. There was a big wall, and there was the stage. There was a little offstage area over here. And so if you wanted to come on stage from the backstage area, that was fine. You could just come right on stage. If you wanted to leave, you could go right back the same way. But for directors, it's like if you have everybody entering and exit through the same door, it's like, what am I doing here? So they realized, like, oh, we have to make a change. They'd realized this long before I was there, right? I was there in Impact's, I don't even know what season. But they realized that if you exited up the same stairs that the audience came in on, you would then be in the pizzeria. And so imagine me playing the drunken lawyer OT, going like, all right, well, I'll get back to you on that. And I would stagger up, and then I would sort of run up the stairs. I would go into a pizzeria, and then I would go past like the counter guy who's like there, like taking pizza orders, I've never seen before, right? We just don't know each other. And I'm like, hello, I'm a weirdly dressed guy who's like moving very quickly. And I would go past him into the kitchen, lots of people making food and pizzas, and so I'm going like behind, and like moving past people. And then I'm out into the alley, which has the dumpsters in it, and the door that goes back inside into where the actors are hanging out. That's the kind of problem that they were solving at Laval's. At Impact Theater, they said, we need to put this show on in a way that's not going to make directors crazy to work for us. What are we going to do? That's going to be weird, but we're going to do that. Okay. And so that is, for any kind of organization that is at this level, that's the kind of problems that you're solving. And part of my contention is like, get down with that. Get happy with that. So let's go through a few more examples of what we're talking about here. So at this level of organization, the leadership is, you're an implementer. You're there doing the things. You're like right there in the front lines, right? It is professional, but it is definitely scrappy. Okay, there's a lot of improvisation. We're talking solopreneurs, early stage startups, the like pizza boxes in the bedroom kind of startup. Maybe you have cobbled an office together. We're talking, individuals, like massage therapists. We're talking accountants, right? Who are just like, okay, I'm doing this thing. Okay, this is really small scale stuff. At this level, a few regulars do everything. Melissa, I can't remember her last name right now. Hillman was the artistic director of Impact Theater for its entire run, its entire 10, 15-year existence. She was the artistic director. She chose all the plays. She was the director of many of the plays. She was also the head of casting and did a lot of the sort of media relationships and all the other stuff. Her friend and sort of business partner, Cheshire, was a photographer who would do all the show photographs. He would also do the lighting, and he would manage the sets, and he would do all the marketing, and right? He put those emails together that would go out. So at this level, a few regulars are doing just about everything. The focus is on the project level. Now, in the theater, this is like the individual show. For an accountant, this is, serving a few of your clients. How do I serve my clients? Can I? Right? but the project level is the biggest thing you're thinking about. Can I get this show up? The kind of problems are like, who do I serve? What is marketing? How do I do it? You know, basic systems like figuring out how to do budgets. How do I hire people? How do I find good people? How do I rent equipment that doesn't break all the time for the budget that I have, which is nothing? Just getting the damn thing going is like what your challenge is at this phase. And a good question, I think, that exemplifies this stage is like, how do we deal with this weird thing that just happened? We left the sets out in the rain. So what are we going to do? And this is a lot of different businesses. This is a lot of organizations. And so one last sort of indication of the kind of organization it was that there was a fight there at the end of the play where Money, the woman, there would come in and confront the antagonist lady. And so these two women would get into a big fight. And at one point, my friend Alex, the one on the left there in that photo, she would run to the wall, push off of it, and then spin around and kick the other woman in the face. Right? In the stage, you know, she'd kick, and the other woman about a foot away would go, ah! You know, and it looked awesome, though. And when they fight, they brought in a fight guy to help them figure that out during rehearsals. But then when they were like, okay, during the run of the show, we're going to need them to come in before each show and sort of run that moment to make sure that they're in the vibe for it and have it in their bodies. Who is going to be the fight, what do they call it, fight captain, who's going to watch that and sort of walk them through that process every day? And I was like, I'll do it. You know, because I'd worked at Shakespeare Santa Cruz prior to that, and I'd been in some big fights on stage. That was my qualification, right? And so I was the one saying, like, let's do it at 50% speed. And they would go through all the motions, and I'd say, okay, do it at 70% speed, and remember, that's show speed, okay? You know, and I would just walk them through that. And so that was the kind of thing that happens at this level. People show up to do things because they're willing, right? You wear so many different hats. And it's exciting, it's great. And the thing I really want to point out, and I think one of our early lessons that I'd love to take from this, is that the people that you collaborate with matter the most. This is the most important thing at this stage. Everybody's doing so much that who you're with matters massively. And so the big question is like, are you going to get creative solutions to your problems? Are you going to get mired in finger pointing or in frustration? And the thing is about all of this stuff is that you have to want to solve problems, right? You get into this for a reason, like you're always wanting to be practicing your craft, and that's great, it's exciting. But at the regional and the smaller levels, especially at this level, you're signing up to solve all sorts of like really weird problems. You think you're going to have like smooth sailing that like big, well-funded organizations have? It just like doesn't happen. Like all the people who are performing at the like really high levels, like for other organizations, like the really expert marketers and the really expert like copywriters, they're not available to you at this level. And so the people that have those really good capabilities aren't available. And so who you recruit. And I would argue that maybe you just promised them they get to hang out with that guy who was there, you know? It's like, you get to hang out with him, you're going to be fine. They're going to be all for it. They've got to be people who you enjoy working with and people who provide you with the kind of results you're looking for. And so I'd argue that the question is, do I like being around this person and do I like solving problems with them? And you keep the people around who both of those are big yeses. People who get things done at this stage are really attractive. But if you don't like spending time with them and you don't like solving problems with them, it's very short duration. It's just a cute date, right? They get stuff done, they get to show up, and then you got to say bye-bye. And now you have to do all the retraining with somebody else in your organization. So really be looking, do I like solving problems with this person? The second lesson is a lot shorter than that, but it's really important. It's going to come back through the rest of this talk, which is embrace where you are. The passage through the pizzeria into the trash-strewn alley actually became part of the character of that theater. That was part of what made Impact fun and cool. That was the juggling chainsaws. I'm never going to forget that. And don't fight, I guess, that you're not somewhere else. I was at the YMCA the other day, and outside the YMCA on the parking lot side, they have the library hold pickup booth. Have you seen this? It's like a kiosk where you can get your library holds. If you can't make it to the library, you can say, like, I'm going to pick them up at the Y. It would be tempting if you were just starting out maybe in the library sort of competition business, right? To think like, oh, I got to have that to compete. But I guarantee you the library did not start with that as one of their features, right? That was not a program that they began with. That was not a product that they offered. And so when you're starting out and you're looking at all these amazing examples of copywriters and of teachers and of all these people who have been doing this thing for a long time, really just embrace where you are. The more you can say, I'm going to get good at this phase, the easier it will be for you to actually get good at that stuff. And once you own it and get good at it, that's how you level up. Once you start serving people at a greater level, really showing up to be a great accountant, right? To be a great, scrappy startup. If you figure out your product, you'll actually have a chance. So that is the scrappy startup phase. The next group I want to talk about, I'm calling the local stalwarts. And these are small organizations too. This is Shotgun Players. This is another Berkeley-based theater. They have a stage right by the Ashby BART station. They've been around for 20 plus years now. All of their art is by this amazing guy, Rich Black. As you can tell, it's gorgeous and amazing. And this is where the lights not going out problem happened that I mentioned. And we were in the Mousetrap. And the Mousetrap is a classic murder mystery from Agatha Christie. It played on the West End in London. I think it's been continually playing since like 1954 or something. Insane. It's just a Broadway, permanent fixture. So we're doing the show, and that character, who's played by this awesome Australian woman, is on stage, and she's supposed to come out on stage and be like, well, this is ridiculous. I don't know who asked me to be here. Where are you anyway? And then the lights are supposed to go out, and she's supposed to go, And that night, and for whatever reason, I don't know, at this level, you're not just renting equipment, you're owning your own equipment and maybe maintaining it, maybe not maintaining it, maybe not knowing how to maintain it, right? But I don't know. I don't know why this happened, but instead of the lighting operator clicking the button and the lights going out, the lights all went up. And so poor Trish is on stage, and she's going, and she's got this couch next to her, and she goes, lights up, and she goes, and the sweat that must have come out of her body at that moment of just like, what do you do in that moment? I'm sure it was awful. And then she goes, and goes down behind the couch. And we all laughed our asses off and thought that was amazing. And the show went on fine, right? There was no outrage. People weren't leaving, whatever. But at this level, you have dedicated staff, you have buildings that you own, you have the consistency of an organization. It helps you a lot, but you're also solving new problems. Like I mentioned, the maintenance of certain things is maybe not happening. At Impact Theater, and the lights go out, the first theater I mentioned, right? The lights go out, and that's just a funny story for the evening. At Shotgun, that's egg on your face. And it's also a chance to build your audience's dedication to you. What they did was, and I'm not sure how logistically they figured this out, but they reached out to every person who was at that performance and said, we would like to give you another ticket to come to see the show the way it's supposed to be. We're so sorry that happened. And you think about the lost ticket sales, you think about the logistical issues, but again, the problem that they had to solve was one of how do we show up for our audience in a way that maintains our professionalism and shows them that we're here for them no matter what happens. So this level, I'm going to explain a bit more about what happens at the local stalwart level. Why did I do that to myself? So at this level, you're a manager, right? You have a few people under you. You have a staff, okay? You are professional. Say no more. You've made it. These are family businesses. The biggest example I could think of locally is probably Paddington Station with a couple of different locations. There's a stable restaurant or a bookstore is sort of at this level, right? A small hotel like the Palm, the one across town, back there a little bit with the funny marquee always, right? A stable, small, established business, right? This is what we're talking about. At this point, you have solid processes for a lot of different things. You know how to put a show up, you know how to put a product together, and you have a small staff, and each one of them wears fewer hats, right? One person at Shotgun was just a marketer. One person was just their education person. Your focus is not just on projects anymore, it's on this individual show, but also on whole products that you offer. You can establish things like a visual identity for yourself, right? You have the space and the bandwidth to start thinking about the season of plays that you're putting on, the family of products that you have together. And the problems that you're facing is what is it to be sustainable, to have sustainable income? Can we have living wages for our staff? Right? We're managing the staff. I'm giving them advice and guidance on how to do their jobs best, right? Not just getting in there and doing it with them. You have donors at this level. You're wondering about the availability of contractors. There's equipment maintenance and a lot more. You're planning beyond individual shows. And a good sort of question or quote at this stage is just this is cool. Can we keep doing this? Is this possible to keep going? And one of the great things that happens at this level is you get to level up a little bit beyond what the super small scrappy theater can do. We did a series of, and business can do. When you're an established local bookstore, you can bring in authors and do talks. You're not just trying to sell your wares at like the Lithia Park or something, right? We did this production called the Norman Conquests. And the Norman Conquests was 3 different plays that all took place in the same house over the same weekend with the same characters. One play was set in the garden, one play was set in the living room, and one play was set in the dining room. So in one play, you would have my character, Reg, who you might have seen with a mustache earlier. He would go, "This is ridiculous, I don't want to be a part of this at all," and he would stamp out, "I'm gonna go get some food." He would stamp out, and then you wouldn't see him for a while, and he'd come back maybe in Act 2 or something. But in the play that's set in the dining room, at one point, Reg would walk in and go, "This is ridiculous." Totally different play. And there were some days where we performed all 3 of the plays back to back. And some of the audiences sat with us during that whole sort of marathon experience. It was amazing. It was crazy to have 3 whole plays in your head at the same time. And at one point towards the end of that run, I did just leave the stage early rather than finish the scene with my acting partners because I thought it was another scene and I was supposed to leave at that point, and I just left and they went for a second and sort of figured it out. And somebody had to come to me backstage and was like, "Why did you leave?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So the ambition level that you have, that you could follow through on stuff that you can't do at the smaller scale. And one of the challenges is that your ambition and your constraints are often sort of bumping up against each other. You could do more, but you're also you still can't follow through on all those ideas. And so the change from the smaller organization is really about how there are fewer hats. Okay? I wanted to do an X through one of these, but I didn't. It doesn't matter. I couldn't find an X. Everyone has their own area of responsibility, and there's not that same permeable role membrane that there is in a small startup. And at this level, I'm just an actor, right? I can move sets often on stage, and I need to at some points. But at the Broadway level, I'm not allowed to do that. They have union people who move the sets around. Those are Teamsters, and you do not F with them, right? Everyone else is also a union member because everybody needs to be protected, and that's amazing. But you can't move the sets. At this level, you can still move the sets. That's okay, right? You're expected to. But I get to just be an actor. I'm not also the fight captain usually, okay? Organizationally, though, you have more people to do things for you. You have technical directors whose whole job is just to focus on tech. Not tech and marketing, just tech, right? You have multiple types of technical people. You have regular scenic artists that you bring in who do the paintings, who put stuff together. You have props people and carpenters and lighting technicians and more. Each of these people builds up familiarity with their role and really gets to actually specialize. And I'm reminded of, there was a costume designer at Shakespeare Santa Cruz, which is similar to this level, whose name was B Modern, the letter B, period, modern. And the way she did her costume drawings of her concepts for each character was she'd literally draw them out. There were these beautiful little, like almost like a children's drawing, like colored pencil sketches of the character wearing their various things. And there'd be a little version of them in other costumes and stuff. And then Vera at Shotgun Players would do these sort of collages that were of sort of cutouts from magazines almost, sort of mood boards for some of the characters. So you get a sense of like, it's gonna be a vest that looks like this, right? So you get the sort of vibe from it. And because they didn't have to do everything, they got to actually focus on something and express themselves through their work in a way that was actually meaningful to them and that communicated their ideas in the best way. And there's a lot of freedom in this. And that's the thing I really want to point out. Every team member gets to deepen their ability to serve the whole because they're more specialized. And what this brings in is one of the biggest sort of phase changes I think that happens, which is that as your roles and responsibilities evolve, so too must your ways of working. This is huge. So a friend of mine is a printer and works in a printing shop, and so I was just imagining, like imagine a printing shop that's 2 gals and a banner printer, right? Just a big banner printer, right? The way that they work is going to be different than when they level up a bit. And there's multiple sets of equipment. They have a small sales team. They have an equipment maintenance guy. They have a color management expert, or a couple of them. They have a consumables manager. They have account managers, right? There's different things are going to be possible for them, but they also can't keep working in the way when it was just the 2 of them yelling across a desk. They have to bring in new systems. They have to bring in ways of communicating with each other. And I think, I mean, maybe we've all been part of organizations that haven't like scaled as they've gotten bigger. But I'm reminded of a friend of mine who used to work for the Public Library of Science, which was it was an open source, sort of free and open scientific publishing organization, PLOS One. And they were great. They're an incredible organization, but they were still using systems that were built at 10 people when they were more than 50. And so there were bottlenecks constantly as things were piling up on one person's desk because they had to do the sign-offs. They hadn't figured out other ways to actually unlock the work and keep it going through the process so it could be published so they could serve their mission. And so how are you empowering your people to make decisions? You're not involved in everything anymore, and so how do you empower people to actually make decisions? This is a big question to be asking yourself at any level, but that really gets relevant at the local stalwarts level. One of the big questions is, are your people defining systems for everyday and recurring work? Like marketing, right? Contacts at media organizations, there's maybe templates for announcements, there's collections of past collateral, right? In hiring, maybe you've got principles that make for great vendor relationships, so you know who to hire and bring on board. You've got interview questions so that you can hire new individuals and get good information out of them. You've got onboarding approaches, right? You get it. Systems are actually going to save your butt, and thinking about systems is going to save your butt 100 times. So, we're ready to move on. That's the local stalwarts. Now we're moving on to the Jiva Theater Center and what I'm calling the regional heroes. So this is Jiva. This stands for Genesee Valley Theater Company. This is in upstate New York in the Rochester area. This is where I went right after college. And does anybody know why you see Christmas Carol on so many marquees throughout the year, like when the time is appropriate? Why do theaters always put on Christmas Carol? They can bring those audiences in, baby. You can bring them all in, right? And one of the best ways to bring them in is to have cute kids, right? You have cute kids in there. And Jiva was at the level where they have 2 different theaters that are joined. They've built the second one. The Christmas Carol has become a tradition. It's an institution at this point. They've been doing it for 10 or 15 years. But they're faced with this problem. How do we keep producing it at the level that we want and having 2 shows on Saturday and on Sunday when there are child labor laws. What do you do about child, darn it. If you've ever heard people talking on podcasts about working on film or TV with kids, you know that it's a huge pain in the butt for the people producing the thing because you can only have them on set for like 4 or 6 hours, period. You have to get everything done, and if you don't, then they need to go and come back later. This is awesome. This is progress. And it constrains you. It's a problem that you have to solve. And so what Jiva decided to do, and had done long before I arrived, was not just have one set. First of all, those are my sideburns, so I did not grow those, but those were put on my body. You would have 2 teams of kids. You'd have one team that was the green team and the other team that was the red team. And they both learned, so there were 2 people for each part. And they would learn they would learn the roles. And so for the morning, all the adults would be there, and then we'd do the show, and we'd have one group of kids. And for the evening performance, we'd have a whole other group of kids there to do the show. And so we had one Tiny Tim. Yes, she's sort of blown out right now. You can't see her. She was amazing. I loved her. Everybody loved her. She was so cute. Then you had the other Tiny Tim, and she was like, this isn't her. I'm not going to dog on some kid right here. Hello, you too. The other Tiny Tim was sort of a pain in the ass. Like, she was 4, and they're awful. And I have a 4-year-old. The other Tiny Tim, Bob, the guy who played Bob Cratchit, was complaining in the bar that night up at the theater bar. He was like, she was sucking on a hard candy while I'm holding it there on stage. She could have sucked it in and aspirated it. He was just wanted to complain about a 4-year-old. But you had 2 different full groups of kids, so you have this whole new set of problems to solve. Your scale is introducing concerns that mean, I never had to deal with this when I was running through pizzeria, like kitchens. And so, let's see, where are we at? Oh, at this level, you are professional. You are a director. You're a director level. You might have actual departments that are under your control. You're giving instruction to the people who are then leading groups, okay? You are professional with prestige. I'm going to tell you a bit more about Berkeley Repertory Company in a minute. They were another Berkeley company and the prestige that they earned. These are local chains, or maybe like area anchors like Harry and David, right? Maybe there's a company that has an HQ and there's a couple of satellites. These are the sort of equivalent businesses. Maybe traditional manufacturing where there's a single sort of floor and a lot of people work there. Right? You got a big hotels, maybe a community college. We're talking about a level where there's enough activity going on and enough relationships that really cool and interesting stuff is happening now. You have dedicated spaces, you have full departments of staff, like dozens of people work there, right? There's education efforts. If you're a nonprofit or a theater, you have big donors, you have these gala fundraisers, you're doing world premieres, okay? There's famous actors and actresses, there's directors, you have living wages in the theater, there's stable work. And the question I think that exemplifies this level, at least in the theater side of things, is, where to go? Oh yeah, one more. I'm not quite there yet. The focus is on not just like projects. Yeah, we know how to do projects, okay? We've actually developing product lines. We're not quite at the verticals stage yet, where you're thinking about also manufacturing. Problems that you're dealing with, how do you stay prestigious? Like, how do you help your department heads manage their people? Are you working with other companies and other orgs, like schools? What are those partnerships like? You're also absorbing other businesses, potentially. You're also competing at the regional level. You're not just in Ashland and in Medford anymore. You're actually competing with people in Eugene. Maybe Portland. No. Do we have enough housing for all our actors? Was something that came up at this level. They had a big block of apartments in this huge complex that we all called Sarajevo because it was not very polite, but it looked like it had like bullet holes on the side of it. Sorry, strike that part from the record. That's insensitive, thank you. We were not nice. Housing for our actors. They were providing that, and we were complaining about it, but we were getting housed. It was incredible. That's the level that we're working at. So the really big thing that makes this level of organization thrive, and I think the really amazing thing that theater does really well, is this structured collaboration. So this is Berkeley Rep. This is Tony Taccone, the father of Jorma Taccone from the Lonely Island. Anybody? Lonely Island? He's hanging out here with Green Day because they're in that rehearsal room that I spent a lot of time in. They produced the American Idiot musical at Berkeley Rep, which opened there and then went on to Broadway. Okay? So Berkeley Rep is a regional hero. They are a regional level theater that is competing with some of the other great theaters across California and Oregon. Okay? They're not at the national level yet, but their stuff is sometimes. Okay? So that's the level we're talking about here. The really amazing thing that theater does, that I think we could all learn from, is structuring collaboration. And when you've got this many people working together, making sure that people are learning from each other is essential. And so I want to talk for a minute about the desire to collaborate and what happens when we do it. And so I'll make a brief detour through theater. And then I'll just say, so the way it works in theater is that you get up on stage as an actor and you go up and you start performing your scene with the other people in rehearsal. And as you start to do that, they say their lines and you start getting new ideas about the relationship. Their lines and their interests sort of bounce off you and you go, oh, this person is deeply upset and they're trying to hold it together. I thought I was angrier at this point, but that doesn't fit with what I'm getting from this other person. You learn through that process. And these are people in the same department at the same level, right? It's not until you actually stand up and start saying those words out loud that you actually learn that stuff. What it feels like to be in the context of all those other people informs actually what your job is. And so changing the way you approach your craft is table stakes. It's what you have to do as a performer, as an actor. And so I think that the lesson that we can all learn from this is getting your thing that you do, that you share, into the other people's hands around you will actually give you new information about what you should be doing. And this is in sales, this is in marketing, this is in teaching, this is in, like elder care, whatever. It's all there. The more ideas you can share with other people, the more information you get. And so the question is, like, how often do you run through like a sales plan with everybody on the sales team? How often do you share that, like, you all have a new approach to project management? That there's a new way of reaching out to existing clients. How often, basically, do you hold a session where you say, hey, here's what we're trying to do, and we want to get everybody's perspective on this? Right? There's a lot of other stuff that makes stuff at this level really essential, right? But bringing your people together is so amazing, and it's something theater does incredibly well. So that's one lesson, bringing people together. And then tied in with that is another one, which is that developing your people is actually a superpower. So this ties in with that same idea. Because once you're working in the theater at this level, you're not just happy to be there anymore. Back when you were in the lower levels, just being on stage is so fun, it's great. But now you're going like, this is actually pretty good for my career. So that's good. But also, they're lucky to have me, Like, that feels good. They're hiring you because you have something that a lot of other people aren't quite doing in the same way. And so the thing that happens all the time on stage is that you will rehearse a scene with the leads in the play first, and then you'll probably get to the people who aren't the leads, and you'll do it all together. But while you're waiting for your opportunity to go on during the scene as the spear carrier guy, you're watching them work the scene out. So the juniors are watching the seniors work and learning the entire time. And going like, God, he's so professional. Or like, Jesus, he's a pain in the ass. You get to be present for that entire process. And that's something that we can capture and make sure is happening. Now, mentorship programs are old news, right? And it's sort of like, come on, like, why aren't you doing this? It's easier said than it is done. But building in the capacity for your junior people to actually learn from senior people, really allowing them to be in the room while the big decisions are made, to weigh in. How amazing. Has anybody ever sat in the room and they've said like, hey Mick, we'd love your perspective. What do you think? Nobody's asking me that, obviously, but like, for you. Like, that feels incredible. And God, the loyalty, right? They want my opinion? Like, oh, how exciting. And so the capacity for that is sort of like no-brainer. And so that's the thing I would love us all to consider. That the opportunities you have for bringing juniors and seniors together really is about how do you ensure people have a space to think and learn from each other? How do you create thinking space together? We do that wonderfully in the theater. It's required. You just have to show up and wait around till it's your turn. And that whole time, you're sucking in that learning, right? Should we do it just that way? Maybe not, but it has some benefits, right? So there's something there. Developing your people and really being mindful of how they're learning is a superpower. So the last bit I would like to share about are the national treasures, I'm going to call them, the international treasures. And Cirque du Soleil was a big one. And they were, as I said, like, I got paid really well for the first time. I got to travel a lot. I got to hang out with, I was the fat guy on the show, which was weird. And I was surrounded by the most terrifyingly fit people you've ever seen in your life. And I started lifting weights. Didn't help. So yeah, I'll just briefly share. These are some of my coworkers. This is our backstage area, and these are my colleagues. And as you can see behind them, there's this giant, sort of almost 30-foot wall. So what would happen is the show we were in, I was in a show called Drawlion, which stands for Dragon Lion, and the meeting of East and West, Dragon Lion. It was an arena tour, so it went every week, it went to a new city. And we were in the B and C market cities. So we went to Corpus Christi, Texas, and we went to Broomfield, Colorado, and we were also in Chicago for a minute, right? But then we went to Fresno, and Stockton. Nothing wrong with Fresno or Stockton, they need art too. But we weren't just, it wasn't San Francisco, LA, right? Boston. There were 18 tractor trailers that would drive between the cities. One of them was just for the food. They would go in and they would hire 100 local jobbers, 100 local laborers, and those would be directed by the crew teams that were permanently part of the show. The carpenters, who were the set guys and gals, the riggers and automation people who do the stuff that would spin around and descend from the ceiling with artists on it, all that kind of stuff. They would all be led by those people. Do you think they had some good systems worked out for how to lead groups of people who've never done this before? So this was the kind of thing we set up. This is a company meeting. This is like one of the things we would do a couple times a week. There's our juggler, there's the clown guys, there's a whole bunch of the Chinese acrobats from a Chinese theater school. Here's one of our main singers, that's the guitarist. That's our artistic director. I'll talk more about him in a minute. This is me with my clown team. This is the guy I replaced. And so there were lots and lots of testing of systems going on when we'd unload. We would all come in, rehearse in the new space, see if there were any quirks to the way we had to enter or exit, right? But we had to set up that set. That went up in the air. That came out of a truck and got put up in the air. And so at this level, who else is there? Oh, wait. Oh, what? What is that? This looks like I'm trying to hide nudity or something. I don't know why that's like that. That's so weird. So this is a terrifyingly fit person. His name is Toro, or he goes by Toro. And he was one of the trampoline artists. Yeah, Toro, the bull. He was, shall we say, an unreconstructed male, and had some certain attitudes that were like, I was like, bro, come on, come to the 20th century, 21st. He was amazing, though. I loved him. He was so great, and he was so fit. But he was the guy who passed out on at the top of the 30-foot wall, because the attitude amongst the athletes that make up, and the gymnasts who make up Cirque, is the show must go on or you're a tiny baby weakling and you suck, right? Imagine, and so he's from Barcelona, and then there's the Russians, there's the Ukrainians, who are like, they were terrifying. Their work ethic and their willingness to like play hurt was wild. The performance medicine people, we had 2 doctors traveling with us at all times, right? This is the level that we're working at. Like, we had ice machines that came with us to soak everybody's elbows because they were like standing on each other's shoulders. He went up to the top of the set that night, not feeling good, but still ready to jump on his trampoline, run up the wall, do a backflip, and land back on the trampoline 30 feet below. He decided midway down from that first jump that he wasn't in good shape, and he lay down on top of the wall when he returned to the top of it. So, most things went well. Then when they don't, his partner across the wall from him goes like this. The stage manager sees it and stops the show. They have a system in place. There is something not safe on stage, somebody is hurt or somebody could be hurt. Stop the show. That every single person on stage has the ability to do it. And that's how they protect their people. And that's how you get to be world class, is you get everybody the ability to do that. And so I want to define a bit more about these folks. At this level, the leadership, you're a CEO, right? These are the people who are in charge, are execs. You define expertise. You're world-class performers at this level. These are corporations. These are universities. These are sports teams, like the Trailblazers, right? This is the level that we're talking about. You own campuses, right? We would fly around on jets sometimes. Not ours. We would charter. But you have staff in the hundreds, if not the thousands. You have entire verticals that cover design and manufacturing and distribution and support. You have collaboration with worldwide brands, right? You run your own annual conference, maybe, right? Do you know what the Tix booth is in Broadway, on Times Square? It's where you can get like low-cost tickets for like Broadway musicals and shows and stuff. This is the level we're talking about. The focus that you have is your international sort of prestige, and you're competing with international other organizations, okay? At this point, you have to deal with shareholders, right? No joke. Logistics, quality consistency. How do you build a show or a product with broad appeal? What is a failure? What is safety, right? And the artistic director had an amazing job. His job was to cycle the acts through. He had to make sure that the guy who came out rolling inside of a giant ball, and the girl who could do the one-handed handstand in the middle of the stage on nothing else, on a little spire that had a little block on it, that they were getting their like artistic development needs met and like could rest on some days when they were like not feeling it. Question at this level, what are we going to do about Asia? Right? That's the level you're working at. Yeah, I just don't know how this is going to work out. And so I want to tell a story of the time I fell off the stage. It's the last big story I'm going to tell, and it's worth it. So there we are. Midway through the show, it's revealed that I'm part of the show. I'm harassed by the clowns multiple times. I'm pulled up on stage, and I pretend like I'm a member of the audience, and I'm like, oh, no, I would never, no, please don't. They pull off my shirt on stage, and everybody screams, then me and my clown partner do a couple backflips, and it's all fun and games, and we let everybody know that I'm with the show. The clowns come out in the middle of Act 2, and this is one of the acts that has come before us, right? And I come out wearing that to look like him, and I look just like him. And we're going to make fun of it. Here's me and the clowns dressed up like the other guys. I think this is like a dress rehearsal. And we're wearing ridiculous costumes to pretend like we're them. And at one point, I go over to one of these silks comes hanging down on the stage, and I'm pretending to be that guy, and I run over and grab the silk and posture a little bit, and then run towards the edge of the stage, and the silk goes up in the air and pulls me up into the air. I do a little tie, so I'm not just hanging on. But I'm spinning around in circles, my legs are out, and I skid. I'm wearing socks, so I skid when I come back down. It's all very funny, haha. And then one night, I grab the silk and I tie in, and I'm going, oh, and I'm going through my act, and I run towards the edge of the stage. And when the silk goes up, you run towards the edge of the stage, and then you get pulled out into a nice arc around, and you're just at the front of the audience, right? When the silk goes down, you just run right off the edge of the stage. And so I ran off the edge of the stage, and I looked at the monitor afterwards, and because we're recording every performance for safety and for rehearsal purposes, and it looks like I fall within about 4 inches of the deck, like the edge of the stage. I'm about that far away. And I don't know what's happening, so I can't control myself as I go off, and I sort of splat to the ground. I'm not hurt, but I jump back up, and what? And I go back into the act, and we continue. And after the show, the automation guy who runs that rig, who makes all the stuff go up and down, he comes over to me, and he's like, dude, I am so sorry. We did a rehearsal earlier today because these guys are doing whatever. We didn't reset correctly. We didn't get back to the point where the proper cue was going to run when I ran your part. I'm so freaking sorry. So first of all, obviously that never happened again. You know when something big goes wrong and you're like, wow, we're going to put in systems and it's never, never happened again. But for the next week or so, do you think I ran full tilt at the edge of the stage? Do you think I had as much vim and vigor in my performance as I'd had? Not at all. Because I had it in my body that I could fall off the stage. And I'm not throwing Cirque under the bus or that automation guy or any of it. What I'm saying is that when things don't work out quite right, you actually get exposed to what can go wrong. You don't have as much freedom. You don't have as much vigor. And, when do you feel most free to explore? When you're under financial pressure and you're not sure if you're going to pay the bills? Why do we do interviews the way we do for jobs? So do you think you want to work here for the rest of your life? Anything like, how's it going? It's like, where do you go? If you don't know if your role is secure at work, you don't know if you're going to have a job anytime soon. Like, do you think you're performing well? No. Like, we just don't do that. And so, we're going to get to the lesson here in a second, but I do want to say, embrace your phase, right? I've said that before, and that's going to be one of our messages here at the very end. Each scale has its own type of fun, right? The small, scrappy stage, creative workarounds, everybody's got to pitch in, right? The local stalwarts level, you've got that professionalism, right? And you've got some new capabilities. The regional phase, you've got some pretty solid processes and you've got a much grander focus. And at this level, the international and national level, you have systems that enable spectacular achievements. Look at that guy. Look at her. And every single person in that audience goes home going just feeling incredible. And none of these are better, right? Each one has its own magic. And I guarantee that some of the folks at this level really miss that small and scrappy stage when they could really play. But one of the ways that Cirque du Soleil has gotten so big and stayed there for so long, is that they have amazing systems. That artistic director, Sean, the guy I pointed out there at the far edge of the stage, at the backstage area, Sean's job was to mix and match the act so that performers who were injured wouldn't have to perform that night or could make a changed performance that night. He would come talk to us clowns and he would say, Mick, stop acting so hurt when the big clown jabs you in the back, because when you look like you're in pain, we like the other clowns less. We need to still like them while also feeling a little bad for you. And I would say, why don't you talk to him about jabbing me in the kidneys? They have systems for keeping the artistic quality incredibly high, for addressing all of the ways that they unloaded those sets and got those people to put them together. They would do the same thing at the end. They would take the entire show down in 4 hours. They would put it into 18 tractor trailers in 4 hours with 100 people who had never done it before. They have systems that help them go into that. It's not going to be super fun, but they know how to do it. They have systems to set them free. So am I keeping my people safe so that they're free to share their best selves? Does your manager ever call you in and say, hey, can we talk for a second? Whoosh, I was not expecting this soon. Okay, was it that? Did I do that? They're like, we cannot get donuts in the office anymore. We got to be gluten-free, okay? Thank you, but no more, right? If you're a manager, say, can we talk in my office for a second? You are not fired, right? Just help your people feel safe, right? Do anything you can. How are you feeling safe? And so this is one of those things that's very, very touchy. One of the things you can do is bring in somebody whose job it is to make sure that people feel safe and secure, right? You can have trainers, you can have coaches. Hey, you can have people on your teams check in with each other. You can build that capacity. So that's just about it. We're going to wrap up here. I don't remember what my next slide is. Yeah, okay, cool. At the really bare bones, like startup level, the very early stage of your business, you're going to have to bring a lot of creativity to bear. The kinds of problems you're going to have to solve, the breadth of them is going to be all over the place. And just getting the thing together, just getting the product out the door is all you're focused on. But at the higher level, your problems get more specific. You have more and more people around to do those various other jobs. You help them figure out how to solve the problems, and then they go and do it, and that used to be you. Now your problem is helping them solve problems. That's your new role. What the heck? Then there's a whole new set of problems you have to solve because of all these other people. Do they interact well? Are they actually producing? Like, what are they good at? Are we stable? Are we growing? How does that work? So sometimes there's like a people manager, a person who's promoted to being a people manager, but they suck. They're not good with people. And you're like, oh no, how do I deal with this, right? First of all, you can hire a coach like me. Hello, right? We could set up a training program for that person so that they know what they're doing and have some basic principles in place. But those were not problems that you had when you were starting out. When you were at the theater, the pizza in the basement of the pizzeria level, like that's not what you were dealing with. So the types of problems you're dealing with are different. And so Impact, they were trying to figure out how to make exits through, the pizza shop, past all the people that were trying to just buy a pizza and a salad and watch the game. You're also wrestling with like email formatting, trying to figure out your newsletter software, right? How do you find donors? And then at the biggest level, like you're going like, how do we deal with Asia? It's a very different set of concerns. But if you remember anything from tonight, I would love it to be, love the phase you're in, embrace where you are. Stop wishing away the current challenges, really find the pleasure in solving your current problems. And you'll find your way into that next level or to the level that really suits where you want to stay. Love the phase you're in, and the systems truly will set you free. They will actually help you at every phase. A nonprofit director is nodding in the back. Structure enables creativity. Okay? Safety creates confidence. Clear processes allow you to focus on other stuff, creative solutions. When you set up systems for what you're dealing with now, and you do this part really, really well, you'll unlock the next stage. Do I have the Einstein one? Yes, I do. There he is. Oh, you can't even see it. It's too blown out. That was me as Albert Einstein doing the face. And when you do this, you can do this yourselves, and I can help, right? But, hold on a second. I lost my place. Yeah, I do want to mention that. I can help. So I'm a coach. My name's Mick. And I never introduced myself, did I? He did. Yeah, Billy did. Thanks, Billy. I'm a coach. And everybody here tonight, I want to offer you a gifted conversation that is totally free, first of all. And there's also no obligation. If you want to work out any of this stuff, if there are systems or concerns about challenges or embracing the phase that you're in, we will talk it through. And we might even do another one. And that will all be my gift, and it is totally a pleasure for me. I love this stuff. Okay, so if you've got any concerns or you want to figure anything out, you'll see my email address on here at the end. It'll also be on the YouTube video. This holds true for anybody who's watching this on tape. Okay? If you want to figure something out and you want somebody to help you think it through and you like what I've said, then let's talk. That said, you can do this stuff yourself. But I think I'll just close by saying that every little kid likes to dress up. Okay, this was a Halloween party that we threw at our house when I was probably 7. Some of those kids go on to dress up in front of people in great numbers, and still others of those kids go on to create cool things for huge numbers of people. Few of us are actually lucky enough to participate in a community that is as collaborative and creative as theater is, but there's no reason we can't take what theater people know and apply it to the rest of our lives. Like, why don't we build more spaces that are supportive? Why don't we contribute to the people that we're around? And why not have the main questions be, who are we surrounding ourselves with, and what is it like to solve problems with them? If you can work out how to perform like beautifully and consistently with these questions, with embracing your stage and with adopting some systems and trying to figure out what those are, you can be the title of this talk, Creative at Every Stage. I really hope you enjoyed this. I really hope that you got something out of it. Go see theater, and thanks to everybody for coming. That's all. That was A Complete History of America Abridged, where he and I auditioned at the same time, and he was like, they're not going to cast us both. We're too similar. And then we both got cast. We were like, yay. Well, thanks for coming, Mark.
That's what I was going to say. So my nephew does CMT in San Jose, and physical theater, and they turn away no kid who auditions. So every single child who wants to audition, they have a part for them. So there's like 8 cowboys, 6 horses, whatever. They'll have 3 casts of like 80 kids in each cast that they'll do. But it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But it's amazing because the inclusivity, and it's just like they're having so much, these kids are just loving it. They don't care, they're just having so much fun, but it takes a lot of parent participation. So that systems is what you're talking about, like they have like a certain amount of hours, each parent has to do whatever, but yeah, so it's very cool. It's very cool. It reminds me a lot of this, what you're talking about.
Totally. And like one of the things that we get to do as leaders or people trying to help other people have a great time or experience is tell them how they can be involved, right? When you set up a system that a parent gets to come to and just say, I'm taking this shift, right? Thank you.
She's like a theater mom now.
Yeah.
She loves it. She loves
It's such a great service to help. Yeah, so that's a great example.
Johnny's dad does the lights, and it's just like, it's cool.
Yeah.
We all get to be a little part of it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Any questions? Any questions about any of this stuff? Anybody want to talk about anything they heard? Anybody want to be one of the cowboys in the show?
I had heard this about Cirque du Soleil, that they perform at 80% and they practice at like 95, 100%.
Oh.
I didn't know if that was true or not.
Not for the clowns, unfortunately. Yeah, one of the really interesting challenges is how they keep going. Our legs of our tours would be 10 weeks long, and we would often do 10 performances in a given week. So, the people are performing at such a level. So we did 293 performances that year. We went to 40 different cities. And they would take 2 weeks off. So every 3 months, you take 2 of those weeks just off. Everybody gets flown home. South America, South Africa, Argentina, San Francisco, because they need that kind of rest. And I wouldn't be surprised though if they're encouraged to like go at that level, but not to do it constantly because. Yeah, one of the performance medicine people that she told me, like, they're all in varying stages of just total brokenness. Yeah. I mean, these young Chinese guys were diving through hoops on this stage, which is slightly sprung so that it's not like this. But, they're 22, so they have a bit more flexibility. Yeah, it's an amazing organization.
And do you think that you were talking about systems when that screw up happened, did it get spread to other performances so that they know, like, oh, you guys have to remember that when you do, these electronic cues, what is your fail-safe to make sure that it gets set properly?
Maybe, yeah. I just know that it never happened again on our show. They do kind of, there's performance reports, and the artistic directors, he's accountable to his bosses who are back home in Montreal. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he had to write that up pretty extensively and talk about the mitigation plan he had to go through with the automation guy. And at the end of the day, it's all on his head. He's the supervisor in charge of everything. The artistic director is. And so, making sure that this what is the term, like, when things disintegrate, when they're very integrated and working perfectly, these performance reports are great opportunities to celebrate people. When they disintegrate, it's a way to lay blame, And I'm sure, when we get into reporting and when we're in charge of groups of other people, there can be a lot of, like, ass covering that happens. So that's potential too. I think one of the real opportunities for all of us is to, like, how do I set up the incentives so that we get good information clearly and well and early so that we can make good decisions and not end up with ass covering, One of the things I've designed trainings on is called psychological safety, and it's about the practice of soliciting people's ideas at organizations and basically owning up to your own mistakes as a manager and saying, like, this is talk about what's going on. I'm going to talk about my biffs and screw-ups. I want you to talk about yours so that people know that, hey, there's something actually not safe going on, and I want to report it. Right? Or I have an idea for a new product or the way we could take advantage of blah, 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 right? That kind of stuff can really, like, protect people, but also, like, help the bottom line. And the more we foster, like, open, regular communication, but you have to be really careful about the messages you send and the kinds of meetings that you hold and all that kind of stuff. So it's an area that, an organization brought me in to train them on that because they were like, we're doing this big DEI initiative, this big diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative, and we're not sure we're well set up for people to actually share what's really going on. We need psychological safety in this organization. This is like a big opportunity and a big responsibility too. Yeah.
I'm curious, Mick, about how you personally, like, scaled your own style of leadership and involvement up that chain and then laterally and then to something new. Like, it's just something I'm coping with right now, like going all the way up and then kind of coming down organizationally, and then my expectations and experience are, like, kind of flipped. And it looks like this journey took you through so many phases. So how did you manage your own expectations of yourself as a leader and, like, the people that you were working with, given that in each environment it was such a different set of expectations and level of professionalism?
That's an amazing question.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's a loaded big question. You know me.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
A good starter for a session.
Yeah. Just for the folks at home, the question is about, like, adapting leadership styles and, like, fitting in and being appropriate at all the various levels, especially because everyone has such different expectations and sort of possibilities involved. Well, I think the simplest version is that I was always just a participant / contractor. I was not actually leading very often. I could sometimes, especially at the smaller levels, sometimes people would be looking to me. I had more professional experience sometimes than a good number of the folks that I was around. And I still clearly remember one time somebody complimented me on my professionalism, and I was like, it's working! It felt amazing to think, like, the way that I showed up was being noticed by other folks at my level. I think one of the things that is really helpful as an actor is the set of rules that are around that really help, especially with the way that we relate to other performers. So as an actor, you don't comment on someone else's work. You don't show up and I don't say, hey, Rebecca, be a little less angry in that scene. I'm trying to do a whole thing and you're sort of stomping on it, you know, right? I would go to our director and I would say, hey, I'm trying to explore something, you know. So clear chains of commands and actual escalations that are appropriate are really important. And that was something that helped me a lot. And I don't know that I ever truly biffed up. I think I pissed off my artistic director from Cirque a number of times. Because I was, how to say it, I didn't toe the line. I asked for special treatment, not realizing I was doing it, but not following the various like rules and stuff. I wasn't going through the chain of command correctly, and I would like, my girlfriend would come to town on the tour, and I'd be like, we rented a car and we're gonna follow the buses. It's gonna be great. And he's like, you can't not ride the buses between cities? What are you doing? So that chain of command, I think, was really important. It's like not speaking directly across at peers, but appropriately following sort of, you know, because there's people above, there were always people above me who had a bigger sense of what was necessary or what was required. And so there was always a little bit of freedom in that. It's like, all I need to do is advocate for what is gonna work best for me, and somebody else has to decide. So that would be one thought. I think one of the things that theater has done really well has set out everybody's sort of responsibilities pretty clearly. And that's another thing that we really have in our favor. As an actor, you know, at the smaller levels, sure, I was, and I always would date people who were like backstage types, you know, and stage manager types, rather than other actors, probably because I was a big mess and like totally chaotic, and they were like organized and knew what they were doing. You know, but like, so I would always go to light hangs when we would put up the lighting instruments and stuff. But that goes away the higher up in the ranks you get. People's willingness to like show up for stuff outside of their role goes away. And part of that is because you're focused so much on your stuff. And so, yeah, I'm not sure I have any better sort of thoughts than that at this moment. But yeah. Yeah, that's what it makes me think about. I think that chain of command is actually a real arrow in the quiver. Yeah. Thanks, guys. I think we'll wrap it there. I really appreciate it. Yay.